Hello, welcome to Joycie Draws Nose and Mouth. I'm going to use the eye drawing I did last week and extend a nose and a mouth and a full face portrait to it. Start by drawing a line down the very center of the face and measure from pupil to pupil. Extend that length downward in an upside down triangle, and that is where your nose will end. Next construction part, corner of the eye from corner of the eye and down, and as you can see, this is where the bottom lip will fall. Next, tear duct vertical line down will show you where the edge of your nostrils are. So we've essentially formed a box to formulate the nose. Now I can start a little bit of shading the sides of the nose. Remember, don't put harsh lines in your nose. It's all going to be very subtle shading. That's what makes noses more challenging than the eye. But you can do it. Now I'm putting in the nostrils, slight line right there, shading them in a bit. Pretty soon I should erase these construction lines so I can further my shading. Okay. I think I made the model's eyes too big. I think I do that a lot, but I like this drawing. I think she looks great with those big eyes. It's a little bit glamorous and exaggerated, but I like it. Okay, I've erased a bunch of construction lines already with my pen type eraser. And now I'm going to get back to shading the sides of the nose. And very lightly, using the side of my graphite, holding my pencil at the back so I can have very easy and fluid moment. Here is a desaturated version of the picture. If you're really just learning how to do noses, it might help you to go grayscale on your pictures, because translating color to black and white while you're drawing is yet another skill to be learned. So if you're just learning, having a little bit of a hard time, try desaturation. It might help you out. And you don't need to do that for very long. Once you learn the skill, you've got it, and you would never need to desaturate again. Now I am using my blending stick to smooth out the shadow of the nose. This model, the lighting on her face is very professional. It really shows off her nose, her mouth. You may be shooting a picture of somebody that is not quite as professionally shot because you don't have the setup with the lighting and everything. If so, I recommend put the light on one side or the other side of the face to create some dramatic shadowing, and that will help you being able to see the shading patterns readily. Will make it easier for you to draw a portrait of yourself or somebody else's face. Now I'm putting a shadow under the nose. She has a slight shadow. Everybody usually does, because the nose catches a shadow at the bottom. Very slight, but it's the same shadow that the top lid of your eyes will show. You have to think about the light coming down from the top. It's going to throw a shadow underneath the eyes, the nose, the top lip, under the bottom lip. Okay, now I'm finalizing the nose with a blending stick. As you might note that I make very broad and quick judgments in terms of shading and line placement. But I go back and make small adjustments, because as I move forward, I'm constantly adding and erasing and tweaking. Now I'm doing pupil to corner of the mouth. Of course, she's smiling. So what happens is the corners of her mouth are going to hit those vertical lines quite readily. So here's the top lip, and now I'm doing the extension of the Cupid's bow from the nose to the top lip. Hers is quite wide. She has a large Cupid bow. I'm going to draw it right now. You have to take a good look at the mouth that you're drawing. This lady is wearing lipstick, so she's accentuating the shading in her mouth. And I'm going to try to replicate that with my pencil. She's a model, so she has perfect makeup on. Try to note the subtle curves in the mouth. Bottom lip now. The bottom lip will always have a shadow underneath it. The top lip is usually in shadow. Okay, I think I have the shape pretty nailed down. So now I'm going to shade the top lip, shade under the bottom lip a bit. I should think about erasing those construction lines. Yeah, there I go. Okay, let's get rid of those. People will have also kind of a dimple at the corners of their mouth, particularly young people. And you'll want to do that shading of the dimple and make it very subtle. There, that's not so subtle, but it's a start. It's a tiny crease. And as people age and get older, of course, that crease increases, unfortunately. I'm throwing in some pigment. I'm going to take the blending stick and smooth it out. As you can see, at this point, I'm doing the skin around the nose, the skin around the mouth, in quest of making the full portrait. I've gone a little overboard with the shading here, so I'm going to need to get a large eraser and use the eraser flat-wise in circular motions to just lightly polish and blend. Before I do that though, I'm going to color in the bottom lip. Here's a small eraser. I'm catching those highlights on her Cupid's bow and the top lip. I'm using my small pen type eraser to accentuate some of the very tiny highlights on her nostrils, the top lip, around her nose a bit. Bottom lip will have quite a highlight. Now remember, if you're having trouble reading from the color photo that you're working from, try desaturating it. If you're working with a live model, make sure the light on your model stays very steady to give you a chance to get all these super important shadows and highlights and textures in for a very realistic look. Okay, now I'm catching that shadow just under her lip. And I'm leaving the highlight. I'm doing a little bit of eraser work to clean up the bottom lip. Some of the vertical crease lines in the bottom lip are going to be quite noticeable with some people, and they're fun to put in. It really makes it pop and look very three-dimensional. So now I am erasing and taking down some of that pigment, particularly in areas. I'm using a cap eraser, which I like to use a lot. Okay, now I'm gonna reblend it. I'm in the process of shading the actual planes of the face now and trying to smooth it out, as her skin's very smooth, so that's what we have to work on. Figure out where the perimeters of the face go. I'm looking at, starting with the chin, I'm going to measure bottom of her nose to the bottom of the lip, and how does that compare to the edge of the chin? I think they're very, very close. Next, the corner outer edge of the eye to the edge of the face. She has an unusual shaped face. It's called a heart shape. You don't see it very often. It's very pleasant shape to work with. I think I've got the right shape on the right side, but I think it's too close to the features. I'm going to need to, later on, open that up a little bit more to be accurate. So now I'm doing the other side. Yeah, I really think the chin needs to be a bit longer, for sure. Too close. Okay, well, at least I'm starting it here. And what I'm doing is I'm holding my dark shading pencil. I'm using an ebony. I'm holding it by the back side so I get a very light touch, and I can begin to put pigment in the areas of the edge of her face. Notice that the light, when it hits her face, highlight the cheeks, the lips, the nose, the forehead, but the side of the face is going to get darker because it's receding from the light a bit. The neck, there's always going to be a big shade of the chin on the neck, and she's no exception. So you have to think about, where is the light hitting the face of the person you're drawing? Usually shadows are found under the top eyelid, under the nose, top lip, under the bottom lip, and the chin. Okay, I've put in where her earlobes are going to be, and I'm getting just the start of some of the hair. She's got an updo, which means she's pulled it back and let tendrils cascade on the sides of her face. Looking at the neck, I think I'm pretty close with the neck, but I think I'm going to have to enlarge that neck a little bit as I move forward. Now I'm putting some shading under her cheekbones. Again, very, very lightly. I'm using the side of the pencil. Again, holding the pencil by the back end. When you're shading skin, you have to be very, very subtle. Particularly if you're working on white paper, because that's a natural high contrast combination. Dark graphite, white paper. So you have to be very careful. And so I'm going slowly at this time. I'm doing a lot of work with the blending stick. What I could use also is a Kleenex on some of the skin areas. A Kleenex will work really fast to smooth the skin out. I think I'm not using one here because I don't have one at my disposal. A chamois. Sometimes your drawing kits come with a chamois. That would work really well too if your chamois is fairly clean. The ones that come with your drawing kit, you can usually throw in the washing machine or put them on the sink with some dishwashing liquid and clean them out now and then. That'll keep them fairly clean, and you can use them on these drawing projects. Okay, now I am taking the large eraser. I'm not erasing so much as I am blending. Can you see how this big eraser, if you hold it flat and you put a little bit of pressure on it and you move in the areas you want to blend and slightly highlight, works great. Now I'm using a circular motion. See how well it smooths it out, the skin area there? That's a really nice trick. So I've got a lot of the facial shading in. At this point, I need to go through and do some subtraction drawing with my eraser and get those subtle highlights in the model's portrait. You have to really slow down at this point and take a good hard look at your photograph or your model, or both. I will be starting the hair pretty soon, and once I start getting the hair in, at that point I'm going to be looking at the entire portrait in context and making highlights and shadows and texture differences and such in a most subtle way, because at that point you're just going to look to tweak it. Now I'm using the side of my pencil. I'm holding it right at the tip. This gives me a lot of control to do the tendrils of the hair. She has a medium brown hair with some highlights and some darker areas. The tendrils are her focal point, so have to make sure those look pretty decent. She also has a partner here that's quite angled for a certain look, so trying to catch that angle. A little bit of blending stick, smoothing the hair a little bit. After I get these generalized sections of the hair in, at that point I would go in with the tip of the pencil and the tip of the eraser to pull out small strands and highlights to make the hair look more realistic. But the first thing I have to do is get in the bulk of the foundation of the hair. Then you can go back in and do those individualized sorts of things, like this little streak I'm putting in right now with an eraser. If you look under the hair is going to be shading the face a bit. So that will also be a future step. Still working the side of the face. I still think that's a little bit too close to the lips. I'm probably going to have to redo that. Okay, putting in some more highlights here. Tweaking that angle. At this point, I'm working more on individual hairs and possible shading on the face. I'm going to need to put in a bit more on the crown of her head. But I'm really close to being done. Okay, I think the next picture you're going to be seeing is my finished portrait of her. And when I look at it, I think it's fine. I did end up making her chin and cheek area on the right side a little bit more full. I also put more hair on the top of her head, the crown of her head, and I smoothed the face out as best I could. I put some earrings in. They kind of conflict with the tendrils, but I think they look okay. And the portrait is done. When you have a graphite portrait, when you're finally done, go ahead and give it a little spray with spray fixative, keep it in place. The poor girl next to her, the eyes are still there, but hey, whatever. Okay, thanks for listening. Really appreciate your time. Bye-bye.